I thought being a New Year time of or time of the year that sort of stuff would probably come up. The fact that most people have probably quit on themselves by now already, or at least stopped doing one thing and decided that they're going to stop doing everything. And so I thought that would probably be a topic where we'd get to some of the reasons why and what people might be able to do.
Yeah, I think New Year's is a really interesting time of year because, well, obviously in the coaching space, and I think probably everybody's social media feeds are filled with things like New Year's resolutions and, oh, do this, do that. And then maybe also people having the opposite message, right? I don't know about in your neck of the woods, but especially in maybe the spiritual community or anyone that's into astrology or actually connecting with the earth and the season, winter is not really the time to be go getting it, right? And chasing your goals and taking all this massive action. So I've always found it a little bit funny because in what I call like the bro marketing or coaching space where it is just, wake up at 4 a.m. No offense if that's your actual natural inclination, right? But like get up before everybody's awake, do 18 things before anyone wakes up, just go, right? With actually no respect to the fact that we are humans and we do need to rest and we do need to sleep. And there are different seasons in life, not just the actual spring, summer, winter, fall seasons, but also seasons in our own life as humans that we should respect and honor. And I with our calendar New Year's is not the same as the astrological New Year's, but also in any more earth-based spaces, they recognize that while, that the winter solstice and right around there, that's like the astrological New Year's, right? And then we know that's a time of death, right? That's a time of things like dying and really going within. But in that sense, death it's not a bad thing. It's a natural process in the cycle of life. Things have to die to be born. And winter is this time of really reflecting, looking inside, like really nourishing ourselves and taking care of ourselves. So it's not that we're not supposed to dream and set intention and set those, let's say, goals or New Year's resolutions, but there's this disconnect in how much action is supposed to be taken versus that process of really getting clear and going within. And, what I like to do and what I like to teach is that looking within time and setting those intentions and really giving ourselves a time in the space to let those really rise up and become clear to us. And it's not that we shouldn't take any action during this time, but it's really taking aligned action, taking nourished action, taking supported action, doing the things that actually feel good to us, not forcing ourselves right into doing too much, which I think what you were getting at, like most people have already quit, right? Because most people like think that they should set this giant goal that is way too much, way too big. And then when inevitably that doesn't work and we feel like a failure and start that cycle all over.
Yeah, I think we may well come at this from different angles, but land in the same place. And we don't have the winter, so to speak, down here. We're in the middle of summer, so we don't have to worry too much about. Although it's been raining a hell of a lot, but what I do tend to find is, especially around this time of year, that there's a little conflict with what we would know from the neuroscience or the history is that if you are making change, then it is an opportune time to make more change, because whilst the brain is in its comfort zone, it's very hard for it to want to make change. It just keeps going and going. But sometimes we do find that events like a New Year's or a birthday provide enough changing stimulus in the mind that the mind says, okay, well, if we're going to change, this is the time to insert the change, right? And you can get a little bit of momentum that way. But I think where New Year's type of things go wrong is that they typically focus solely on the how and they forget about the what and the why, which is potentially what you're talking about when you're making changes that are aligned with who you are and supported changes and that they seem to be very ill-advised, the changes that typically come at New Year's Day. They seemingly have been determined on the 31st of December, perhaps at 11:59, and for some strange reason, an individual believes that they're going to be able to keep a promise to themselves that they have not been able to keep at any other stage, and even this time with no support, no plan, no real meaning or purpose as to why. They somehow feel as though this time it's going to stick. And certainly in my world, like I'm very much about the action side of things, taking it, doing it, building discipline. But it is a built process. You have to build it slowly. And I've been talking about for a number of years now, this is probably still not early enough, but if you want a New Year's resolution to stick, you have to start on the 1st of December. But you have to start preparing your confidence in your ability to keep promises to yourself. If you want to stop smoking, you don't have to stop smoking on the 1st of December, but you have to start engaging parts of your mind and parts of your body to accept the fact that you keep promises to yourself. Every time that you've told yourself you're going to go to the gym at 6 a.m. and you didn't go, or that you went at 2 p.m. and not 6 a.m., that's a broken promise. And your mind keeps a tally of all of those. And the more of them that you stack up, you get to January 1 and say, I'm going to go to the gym 5 times a week. And your brain goes, yeah, all right, we'll see how long this lasts. It knows already that you're going to quit at some stage. And by the second week, you've probably forgotten your shoes and that's your excuse. And then by the third week, one of the kids is sick, so that's your excuse. And then eventually you just go back to the old habits. So I certainly agree that if anybody wants to make some sort of lasting change, it has to really be tied to the what, as in specifically what it is, not just lose weight, stop smoking, or save money, or any of those generic type of things. So you have to create a specific what and a really solid reason why it's important to you, because that reason why, that internal process that is going to sustain you when you forget your shoes. It's going to sustain you when you feel tired and don't want to get out of bed. It's going to sustain you when you miss a day or two and determine that you have to go back to it, which is something that you haven't done before. And so I think where most people get it wrong, and look, I get why gyms will advertise everywhere and trainers will advertise everywhere, because they want to cash in on everybody's vulnerability at this time of year. But in reality, if you want significant change, don't start with the how, start with the what and the why, and then figure out how along the way.
Yeah. And I think that's important to recognize is literally the only way to figure out how is to do it and figure it out along the way, like you said. And that our human brains, they want to know how before we do it, before it happens. But there's no way to know that. The only way we'll know is once it's already done, then we'll know. Then we can look back and say, well, that's exactly what happened, right? But all we can do from the place we're at now is guess. And of course, we want to take educated and intelligent guesses. We want to make a plan, right? But like the really tangible thing for people to understand is it's like a goal or skill or anything we're trying to accomplish, we're gonna fail. And it's really important to fail along the way so we can figure out how to overcome those failures and what's going to work, right? There's a million quotes about this. Like, success is a pile of failures. I can't really think of the quotes, but you see them all the time.
Like Thomas Edison, I didn't find 1,000 ways to fail, or I didn't fail 1,000 times. I found 1,000 ways that the light bulb didn't work or something.
Right. And like perfect example. And there's any person that has ever succeeded in any endeavor would tell you a version of it. Yet most people sit there and think, no, I should just know exactly how to do it the first time. Right. And when it goes wrong in any way for any reason, it's like, oh, see, now I can't do it. I know I'm a failure. Nothing's working. And we just sabotage ourselves mentally into not continuing to take those actions to figure it out. Right. So I have a little thing that I talk about, and it's decide, act, evaluate. right? And it's similar to what you're saying. It's first, you got to make a decision. What are you going to do? Right. And yes, it's very helpful to know your why behind that. Like that's a whole other level of psychology that's important. But at the end of the day, it's okay. What am I going to do? What action am I going to take to get that done? And and then you go do that and you find out what worked, what didn't work. What do you want to keep doing or what do you want to change? That's the evaluation part. So literally, this is what a resolution, a goal, like that's just okay, what's the result you want to accomplish? But generally in a result, there's going to be many actions that are going to need to be taken to get close to that, right? So we'd be much better served to just, okay, what am I going to do? Okay, let me try this thing, knowing it's always an experiment. Like I call it, like put on your science hat, right? Like try the thing, do it for a certain amount of time, like commit fully to doing it, whether that's a week, whether that's a month, 3 months, whatever. Say, okay, I don't know, let's use the example of starting to go to the gym, right? Okay, cool. I know I want to get fitter, so I know I need to go to the gym. So my goal is to go to the gym 3 times a week, right? Or for the next month. Okay, well then I'm going to do that. I'm going to commit to going to the gym 3 days a week. Now, the first week that I start to do that, I'm probably going to fail. Most people don't just decide to go to the gym 3 days a week and then poof, magically they're doing that. Great. It's going to be cold and dark when you wake up. The tire's going to go flat. You're not going to be able to find your shoes. There's gonna be excuses. Like one of my expect resistance. The brain is always going to throw up some sort of resistance. But we want to and that's like another thing I teach. So we want to get really good at solving for that ahead of time. Right. Mm-hmm. So when I think like, hey, I want to go to the gym 3 days a week. What I'm going to do is I'm going to sit down and I'm going to make a list of all of the obstacles and all of the excuses I can think of that my brain might throw up. And I'm going to solve for them right now, like away from the moment. Right. And so then when it happens, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, well, I already figured that out. Right. We want to make it as easy as possible because what's guaranteed is our brain is going to want to do it when the time comes.
Yeah, we have to remove as much friction as possible. And then you can probably get it, a little bit from physics lessons. Something is not moving. It requires a force to move it, right? It requires some level of push to get it going, and it will start slow and it may have hit some bumps, but as it builds momentum, you will find that it does become easier, or it rolls down the hill faster, or it picks up some speed. And I think at least you're entitled to give something a try long enough to know that it doesn't work. And I think that's where people let themselves down a lot. They will do something for a short amount of time, but nowhere near enough to figure out that this hasn't actually worked. Like if you want to start a fitness program, you will not know in a week whether it's worked or not. You have to give it 3 months, and then you can determine whether it's worked, how well it's worked, what you need to tweak, change, stop. But most people, they will give it a week. They'll say it's not working, and then they'll say to themselves that they'll start something else next week, and they never do. And I think people also forget the advice that they would give others. And this is true in a number of areas, but when you're talking about when we miss a day for ourselves, or we don't really know what to do for ourselves, the conversation is a hell of a lot different than if our mate comes to us and says, oh, I missed going to the gym yesterday. What should I do? We know what the answer is. It's just that when we have the conversation with ourselves, we seemingly don't give the same answers that we would to other people. We'd either get down on ourselves, we'd give up, we'd quit, we'd say we're not good enough, we'd say that this isn't for me, whatever those self-talk things are. And then we talk ourselves into not going or not continuing. And again, that comes down to that brain or mind resistance. Like the mind doesn't want to change. The brain doesn't want to change. It's an efficiency tool. It's decided that this is the way I do things and this is the way I always want to do things. And so in order to make some significant changes in your life, you have to overcome that resistance, and preparation is a big part of that. I love talking about success starting on Sundays. Most people will start their programs on Monday, but if you want to have success with your program, it has to start on the Sunday. You have to start preparing. You don't have to start doing necessarily on the Sunday or the day before or the week before or the month before. You have to start preparing for the failure, preparing for the success. So if you are somebody who typically loses their shoes, then you have to build a habit of putting your shoes out the night before so you know where they are. You have to start, your success starts on the Sunday. It doesn't start when you wake up Monday morning. If you want to do a nutrition program, then you have to do the shopping on the Sunday. You can't wake up Monday ready to start your nutrition program and not have the food in your fridge, right? It's just not going to work. So again, that's where I think New Year's resolutions let a lot of people down. They decide on 31st of January. They wake up on the 1st of January. The 31st of December. They wake up on the 1st of January. The shops are closed. They've got a hangover. All their friends are still in the house. The only food there is bloody Cheetos and burgers and beers and everything. And they're like, oh, it's all right. I'll start tomorrow. And all of a sudden, they've lost already. And so that preparatory work is vital. And you have to dig deep into that. You have to be honest with yourself about the parts of your life that you have let yourself down at before. Where have you failed before? What has got in the way before? Where have the circumstances led to you quitting in the past? And how can you overcome those before they arise again? Because if you have a look at your history of failed attempts at weight loss or saving money or dieting or whatever it is, I promise you that there are probably only a handful of things that you have given into a number of times over and over again. So if you can account for those early, plan for those early, then either they won't show up this time because you're ready, or if they do, you've already got a plan and you can keep going. You can create a lifestyle. You can make this your identity. You can make this who you are. And when it's who you are, it becomes what you do, not the other way around. You have to make this about who you are as a person. And then if it's who you are, it is what you will do day in and day out.
Yeah, I think you hit on a really important point there. And it's like preparation is the key to success. It makes the biggest difference ever. And it's actually a lot easier to get your brain to do the preparatory steps than it is to take action. And once you've done the preparatory tasks, that really builds quite a bit of confidence and then makes the actions easier to take. So like it's a win on both sides. And what I mean by that is, you gotta let's use our example, like I'm gonna start eating differently on Monday, right? Well, if I just wake up on Monday morning and there's no different food in the fridge, there's no plan. What does different even mean? I'm gonna start eating better. What the heck does that even mean? That could mean so many different things, right? Like I said, I wake up Monday morning. Okay, today I'm supposed to start eating better. Everything in my fridge is the same. I don't really know any better recipes or better food combinations or anything. I'm like at complete massive disadvantage. Like it would actually be next to a miracle if I could even accomplish that super vague task when I have like none of the resources to do so, right? Whereas if I gave myself time and like ideally not just one day, like some time to figure out, okay, well, what does eat better mean? And maybe define that a little bit. And then, okay, well, so like breaking it down, like dumbing it down to the ridiculous, right? Like exactly like what are all the little things that I would need to figure out and understand and know to actually accomplish this like action or this goal that I have for myself, right? So it's like, well, I need to know like what does better mean? What foods are involved? I would need to go grocery shopping. I would need to have some general idea of maybe some food combinations or recipes that I could make, right? There's like all these different little things I can do. And so instead of just telling myself, I need to do all that, telling myself, let me figure out what's involved. Not even telling my brain I have to do it yet. Let me just figure out what that would look like. Let me just figure out what's involved, right? And then as I start to do that work and maybe like make it fun, like grab a coffee, sit in your favorite chair, like go in the sun or in a nice room in your house or something. Like make it as enjoyable as possible for yourself. To spend the time like looking at, okay, what could this look like? How do I make this as easy as possible for myself? Right. And then once you have all that together, like I said, it starts to like build confidence. So I almost like sometimes someone is really resistant to doing something. Like I tell them to like, don't like disattach the part that you're even ever going to do it. Let's just figure out if you did do it, what would it look like? What would it take? And a lot of times you find out it's actually easier than your brain was making it seem at first, right? Because when a task is really vague, that tends to it just seems so much bigger and heavier and overwhelming. Whereas if we break it down into those little things and oh, okay, well, I just need to go to the grocery store. Well, I've done that before, right? I just need to buy this one food. I just need to put these things together, right? It becomes a lot more manageable. And then maybe it's oh, okay, well, I could actually do that. You have a lot better chance of actually doing it.
Yeah, the, the vague goal thing is quite a big part of success as well. Sorry, that's a big part of failure. And vague goals, they tend to hit you from two completely different sides. And if the goal is vague enough, or if the goal is vague at all, so I want to lose weight, it's a typical one this time of year. What does that mean? If I get to the end of the week and I've lost 100 grams, I could jump up and down and say, well, success, I've lost weight. I have literally lost weight. Or I could get to the end of the week and have lost a kilogram and be disappointed because it's not enough weight. And depending on how your brain and mind is structured and the stories that you've told yourself over and over again, you can be convincing yourself of success when you haven't actually achieved anything, or convincing yourself of failure when you've achieved quite a bit, and thus reinforcing the fact that you might as well stop. I haven't succeeded. It's not going to work for me, so I will stop. Or, yay, I've already lost 100 grams. I've succeeded. I might as well stop. And so it's actually your brain and your mind giving you the get out of jail clause by making the goal very vague, right? If you're somebody that's always down on yourself, you'll probably find that you will achieve something quite good and still be able to tell yourself that this is a failure, because that's the type of mindset that you have carried into your challenge. And again, if you are somebody who is trying to get out of it very quickly, you will perhaps have a little failure, but it seems like a success. And then you'll give yourself the excuse that you can give up because you've already succeeded. And I think what flows on from this is people get very goal focused. And so they create their goal and then they set out about it. And let's say it's a big goal. It's 10 kilograms or 20 pounds that they want to lose. And it's quite a significant amount. So they've got a little bit more specific about it. But when you're goal focused, what tends to happen is every day that you haven't lost 20 pounds, you consider yourself a failure. Because compared to your goal, you've not succeeded yet. The other thing that happens is when you do finally get to that point, you have nowhere else to go. You've determined that was the end point. You've reached it and it's game over. And that's why in the space of 3 years, 95% of people that lose a significant amount of weight will put it back on. In 2 years, 85% of people will put it back on. In 1 year, 70% of people will put it back on because they've been goal focused as opposed to process focused. And what I would encourage people to do in that space is to become goal driven, but process focused. So you have to be specific about your goal. That goal has to drive you. There has to be a point to what you're doing. But then once you have determined that goal, that with specificity and that reason why behind it, then it comes down to the process. You have to focus on your process, and that is all. Because if your process involves eating certain foods, exercising in a certain way, a certain amount of sleep, a certain amount of hydration, then you only have to do that today. And you can finish your day and say, tick it off, that was a success. And you can build momentum. And tomorrow can be a success. And the next day can be a success. And what you will find is one day you wake up and look back and you've already gone past the goal that you thought you were achieving or looking for, or it's changed to become, it's not about the 20 pounds anymore. It's about the lifestyle that I now have, the fitness that I have, the mobility that I have, the vitality that I have. You have shifted the goal to be something that's even more intrinsic. And then it becomes a lifestyle. It becomes your identity. It doesn't end just when you lose 20 pounds. It's now who you are. And you love who you are now rather than hitting that mark, quitting, because you got there, or quitting because you can't get there, and going back to the same place that you always end up every year, every month, every birthday, every Monday, whatever the routine happens to be for you. So really trying to become goal driven, get it specific with a deep reason, but process focused. What are the processes that make it up? Like you're talking about, what is the shopping I need to do? What are the foods I need to get? When do I need to eat these? Who do I need to talk to? What's the process I've got to put in place if I feel like there's a failure coming? What's the process to put in place when I do miss a day? How do I get over those things? And that's where success is found for everybody that has high levels of success. They are primarily process focused. They are definitely goal driven. This is not about letting go of your goals, but they are process focused, not goal focused.
Yeah. And when you have that process focus and you really do the work on solving for how to be doing the process over and over again, it becomes easy at some point. It becomes just what you do. And that's like such a key difference that I see, because just so many people don't reach that point, right? How many people have been trying to lose that 20 pounds for how many years? Right. But it was with the wrong focus versus what you're talking about here, and finding what works for you. Right. Because I think we also want to taking it like a little bit deeper. It's not just, let's say I started a workout routine and I did it for 3 months and I decided it wasn't working. Well, the answer is not to just never work out again. Right. Like it's not that working out is not working, but we need to really examine what exactly am I doing and what can I change, right? Like one thing with humans have to move. We're meant to move. Our brains are designed to move. Our bodies are designed to move. We all know, I think it's something I haven't heard anyone argue with yet, but I bet it's coming, is that a sedentary lifestyle is not healthy for anyone. Right. But within the world of working out, there are so many different ways to work out. You don't have to go to the gym. The gym is truly just one option. So if that isn't the one that you can get yourself to do, that's okay. Keep trying. And I'm a big fan of finding a type of movement that brings you joy. That's actually fun for you. That's actually enjoyable, because you are going to do it so much more than if you hate the thing that you're doing. Now, don't get me wrong. Sometimes it's useful to learn to do things that you don't like doing. And sometimes you actually end up liking doing them. Right. But I'm just saying, we want to go a little bit deeper in our thinking processes. And we look at when we decide something is not working, not throwing the baby out with the bathwater, but looking at, okay, why? What and what about this? And what are some smaller tweaks and changes I can make? And just understand that that's such part of the decide, act, evaluate. That's the evaluation process. Sometimes you're going to find something that does work, and then then we still want to go deeper and look at why did that work? What was useful there? Because success leaves clues, and a lot of times we can pull out those useful things to apply to other areas of our life. Sometimes something's not working, and what's the easiest tweak I can make to give myself a chance for this to start working? And then we got to try that. And then sometimes that won't work, and sometimes it will, right? But it's just rinse and repeat over and over again. And that is the biggest thing, is I've been in the health and wellness and strength and conditioning and fitness space for, I don't know, probably close to 15 years now. And in the beginning, it was cool and fun enough. And I was gung ho on some of these concepts, right? And some of the concepts that I let go of too. But as I continue to be here and as I get older, the thing that really strikes me is it doesn't ever end. Right. And people sure, I've heard that paid lip service too, but you don't really get it until you've done it and you had that realization. Right. But even in my own life, it's I think I thought that at some point I'd just be there. Right. And it just no. And not only that, and this might take the conversation in different directions, so forgive me and bring it back on track if you want to. But something that's been coming up for me personally a lot lately, because I had a really major brain injury at the end of March last year. It's been almost 9 months. And that was a major derailment in my life. And when it first happened, I didn't really realize how profound or how big of a deal it was. And it's only really sunk in as I've continued, gone through, because with brain injury, it's not the same as like, if I broke my leg, if I broke my femur, like the worst part of that is gonna be immediately. It's like, well, shit, my bone is sticking out of my skin. Obviously, that needs to be like reconnected or reattached, and I'm gonna be in a cast. Although obviously there are definitely some psychological impacts and physical impacts that come with the healing process like that. It's usually relatively straightforward, and that you are hurt the worst at the time of impact, and then it's gradually going to get better. With brain injury, a lot of the time, the original impact is not actually the worst period. The worst period actually can often come in post-concussion syndrome. And the 3+ months after the brain injury is where some of the, actually what I would consider the worst parts of it start to show up. And that may or may not get better depending on there's just so many factors that go into it. But long story short, for me, it's a longer process, and there's still some things that I'm not able to do that I was able to do before the injury. And it's been 9 months, right? And having and this happens, I'm sharing this in the context of my injury, but I think this can happen even outside of the context of injury for people at different periods in their life. Is things change, and they don't always change for the better. Like, I physically am weaker now. I cannot do what I could do before. Now, that doesn't mean I'm never going to be able to do it again, but I actually have to rebuild, and I have to go back and do the exact same work that I did once upon a time. Except now I'm in the place where my brain likes to tell me I should be better. I should be able to do that, right? Because I've done it before, versus being more of a beginner or someone who hasn't done these things. Their brain tells them other shitty stories, right? And I'll take this too, though. I suppose I can empathize a lot more with, because I don't know about you, but a lot of especially in fitness, clients would come to me and, I used to be a D1 athlete in college, or I used to be any sort of sport. I used to be at any level of sports, right? I was more fit. I was more athletic in high school, in college, when I was younger. And now I'm not, and I cannot do those things. And their brain is constantly bringing them back to this place where I should be able to do it, even if they've been sedentary for 20 years now. So there's some obvious, okay, well, maybe we should be able to do it, right? Anyway, point being, the steps are the same. Everything we're talking about right now, it applies no matter what situation we find ourselves in. Right. And so, like I said, I took that in a little bit of direction.
No,
But
I think it's a fair tangent, and it makes sense to what we're talking about. And I suppose probably a couple of things that I'll say, perhaps in terms of your story, and then generalizing it to the population, is that these things happen in many different ways to many different people. So we get hit with something comes out of left field we're not expecting, and life after is different than life before. And I think what you mentioned there is very normal for people. Like, you're not at that level that you were before physically. You're not as strong as you were, or you've had some losses or those sorts of things, and you may well get back there. But I think where the mind goes often is the comparison that we always make is to our former selves and the things that we feel comfortable with. Because if I was able to shift some of your perspective, what you may have lost in physical strength, there's a very good chance that you've gained something somewhere else. There are other areas of your life that you are better at now, or you are more accomplished at, or you have developed a new level of resilience or resistance or understanding or process or focus on something not just physical that is in there, that you've had to overcome something new that is a positive. And we do focus a lot on our losses. As I'm a lot older than you, so as you get older, there's a lot more losses that come, and it's very easy to, especially if you were physical when you were younger in life, and as you get older, or even if you were highly accomplished athlete, it's almost impossible, even if you still have the physical attributes, but if you're not training 7 days a week with a nutrition coach and a strength and conditioning coach and the environment and all of those things, it's still going to be very difficult, even if physically you could be capable of doing those things. You've got a family now, you've got a job, there's a whole lot of things that come into it. But there are new things in my life that I am better at or good at or that I've been able to achieve. But I've had to shift my perspective as to who I am as a person, or not who I am as a person, but what it means to be this person, right? This person, I spent a long time in the federal police and I defined myself or defined my identity by some of the things I did back then. That's not what I do anymore. And so I've had to re-examine the who I am piece, not by what I do, but literally by who I am, the character that is made up with it. And the things that I do on the back end of that are byproduct of the who I am piece. And some of the struggles that I've been through have been, whilst you're in them and even shortly thereafter, terrible experiences, and you get an opportunity as you grow through them to look back at them as opportunities or as fortunate events that have created a new level of learning or understanding or something a little bit different, something more cerebral than less physical, perhaps. As evolution will have it, that's how our lives are set to go. We are going to become less physical and more cerebral, hopefully, as we grow, become more wise, become more mature. And sometimes if we don't learn the lessons naturally, God or the universe or somebody else will chuck something in the way to make sure that we learn them without a shadow of a doubt. So that's a little bit on perspective. But I think everybody can take a lesson too from your experience. And I find that often the second time around is a lot harder than the first time. And the reason the second time around is a lot harder is because you do have that expectation. I could do this before. So you have an immediate letdown. You almost have an immediate letdown that I am no longer the person I thought I was. So that's where it stands. It's not true, but that is the thought process that is going on inside the mind. I can't do this anymore. Therefore, and we see this with athletes a lot. We see this with military veterans a lot. It's not just a physical capability. There's a concept called identity foreclosure. And what we do is we close down our identity around particular narrative. And usually it's around something that we do. And so if you take a veteran, for instance, the identity is of what they do. I'm a military soldier. I'm part of this battalion. I'm part of this group, this team. And then when they leave, they're no longer part of that anymore. And it's, if I'm not that, then who am I? And if I used to be able to lift 200 pounds and then I got injured and I can now lift 150, well, I don't feel like I'm the same person anymore. Right? I've actually lost a piece of my identity somehow. Now, again, this is not true, but this is a story that we've told ourselves, that in some way, who we are is what we do. And you feel a little bit of loss. So if you've achieved before and you can no longer live to that standard, or there's something that is preventing you from doing that at this particular point, then it's difficult the second time around, because we are now battling the fact that, well, I should be able to do that. And if I can't, then what's the point? Right? I might as well not do anything. If I can't lift 200 pounds, well, I might as well not even be. Right? And the second reason it's very difficult the second time around for people is because there's also, this is probably more true for weight loss rather than strength gain, but there is a part of your brain, because you don't want to do it, there is a part of your mind that will tell you, it's okay, we've done this before, so we can start tomorrow. We know what to do. We've been here before. We can start tomorrow. We don't have to do it today. We can do it tomorrow because we already know what to do. You've done it before. You did it in 3 months before. So another day is not going to be a problem. And eventually that another day becomes another month, another 6 months, another 12 months. And because you've already been there, you know what it's going to take. And your subconscious mind goes, this shit's going to be hard and I don't want to do it. And the conscious mind, the logical part goes, yeah, the excuse that we'll give is we've done it before, so we can start tomorrow, right? That's how the mind works, right? Like the subconscious knows how hard this is and wants to avoid it at all costs. And the conscious goes, well, I can't just tell people I'm going to not do it. So I will tell myself that it's because I've done it before and I know what to do, so I'll do it tomorrow. And that's why second time around is difficult. So I suppose that the answer to that is, if you are in the battle right now, don't stop, because next time is harder. And if you are coming back at it for your second time, part of the conversation we had before, plan for it, prepare for it, right? Like really build strong foundations, why and meanings and purpose, and really remove as much friction as you can and have your plans in place and get support. Go and speak to a trainer, a coach, an accountability buddy. Engage with people that can help you get there, because it may well be tougher this time around, but it will be tougher the next time around again and again. So make sure your plans are right. Start on Sunday. Don't do your preparation before you do your work. And you will give yourself the best chance. Understand what failure is going to look like, because you will miss a day. And what's your battle plan when you miss a day? How are you going to overcome that? And then focus on your process. Jade, you're looking at rebuilding strength. You may have to redefine what it looks like for you, or you may have to figure out your process. And it's just, well, if I keep adding 1% a week or 1% a month, at some point, you might even be stronger than you were before.
Yeah. And it's not always positive, right? Like we're not always going to be motivated and ready to go and like in the best mood. And for me, what I like lately, I've just really been embracing the stuff, like doing it even when you don't feel like it, like doing it anyway, because really, truly, the only, like, this sounds cheesy, but it's so true. The only way to fail is to stop trying and is to quit. Like, that's the only way to truly guarantee you're never going to get there. Right. So even when it feels like things aren't working, even when it feels like it's not, like, it's just not happening, you just keep figuring out, okay, well, what can I change? Okay, well, what's next? Okay, well, like, that just comes back to decide, act, evaluate. Keep trying stuff. Keep evaluating. Keep trying stuff. Keep evaluating it. No, you're not always going to feel like doing it. Do it anyway, the most you can. When you have those days where you don't do it, that's when I really love using the evaluation process, right? Because we can learn from those days. Well, why didn't we do it? Was it a thought obstacle in my mind? Was it some circumstance that happened in life that gave my brain an easy out? And if so, what am I going to do the next time that comes in? And then brainstorm some ideas. So now we have something else to track. Now we have something else to work from.
Yeah, and look, there's some good science around doing things when you don't want to do them. You know, like if you've got your plan set right, and you know where you're going, and you know what the process is, right? I'm not talking about just jumping into something that you don't want to do, you know, willy-nilly on the 31st of December. But you've got your plan, you've got your process, and you know that you have to get up and do something tomorrow that you don't want to do. There's some good science around a particular part of the brain called the anterior mid-cingulate cortex. The name's really, really probably basically your center for willpower, right? And it's a part of your brain that you can grow or you can shrink for your entire life. This is not neuroplasticity will happen for your entire life. It slows as you get older, but not with the anterior mid-cingulate cortex, right? It doesn't matter whether you're 60 or whether you're 6. If you do hard things that you don't want to do, and the talk that I've given a lot is about getting out of your zone of comfort. So I like physical things. So if I do something hard in the physical realm, that is not me getting out of my comfort zone, or might be out of my comfort zone, but it's not out of my zone of comfort. So I'm not necessarily building this anterior mid-cingulate cortex part of my brain. But if I was to go and do yoga, which I don't like and I don't want to do, and I find hard. Now I'm building this willpower part of my brain. And what they've actually found is people who live longer, perhaps people who live better lives, have larger anterior midcingulate cortexes. And so eventually what happens is you build this willpower part of your brain to the point where you can just keep doing the thing, even if you don't want to, but you don't even recognize anymore what's going on. Now, the example that I'll give from my own life is, for a long time, I would do cold showers or cold plunges, and they'd be on and off, and I'd do it for 30 days and I'd stop, and maybe I'd do them, maybe I wouldn't. In October 2022, I started doing cold showers, and I just said, I'm just going to do cold showers. And at some point I said, right, I'm doing them every day for a year. That was it. I took all options off the table. There was no, like, if I didn't feel like it, if I was traveling, if I was whatever, every day, cold shower. And I'm pretty sure there's a day that I got to about lunchtime and I couldn't remember if I'd had one or not. But apart from that day, every day for that year, I had the cold shower. And I got to the end of October 2023. And I'm like, right, I don't need to do this anymore. I've done my year. It's fine. I think all but 2 days since October, the end of October, I've had a cold shower every morning. It's now just on autopilot. I just get up and I do it because I built this part of my brain that just, this is what I do. This is now who I am. And last year, people that follow me, on the 1st of January, I ran up a mountain here in Brisbane, and every Sunday I went back to the same mountain 53 times in the year. I did this mountain. And last Sunday was the first time I didn't have to go because I said I was doing it for the year. And before you know it, I'm up putting my shoes on, I'm out the door, and I'm on the way to the mountain without even considering why I'm going to this mountain anymore. It just becomes part of who you are. So the two aspects of just trying to find a way to get there, even if you don't want to go, is one, you do build this willpower part of your brain that is very significant in longevity, in life, in satisfaction, in being able to complete tasks. And you can grow this at any stage of your life. And that's very vital. And two is to do it long enough that it becomes part of who you are. And then going to the gym is not a habit, it's who you are. Eating healthy is not a habit, it's who you are. Not smoking is not a habit, or quitting a habit, it's who you are. And that's the key to success. It's doing it long enough that it becomes part of you. And if the process that you've determined is the right process, then you do it forever. You don't have to stop doing it. There are things that you do in your life now that you've been doing forever. You brush your teeth every day. This is not stuff that you haven't done before. Building good habits is a bit harder than building bad habits, typically because they have to be built consciously and not subconsciously. Bad habits typically come from a subconscious escape of some sort. So your subconscious takes over and makes it easier for you to stay in bed in the morning or watch Netflix or have that cigarette or drink alcohol or whatever the case may be. But reversing that is a conscious process, which means you are going to battle your own mind and your own brain at times. But know that battle's coming, and bring it back, bring your exercise back to the very first thing. Just tie your shoes up. Just put your shoes on and tie them up. Even if, just say to yourself, I've done this too. I don't intend to go to the gym, but I'm just going to get dressed for it. Right? I'm not going to the gym. I already know I'm not going to the gym, but I'm going to put my gym clothes on. Yeah, I know I'm not going to go to the gym, but I'm just going to get in the car anyway. Right? Yeah, I know I'm not going to go to the gym, but I'm just going to drive there and I'll see what happens. And you get there. I've done this. I've been driving to the gym going, I thought I wasn't going to go to the gym. And then all of a sudden you're there and you're like, well, I'm here now. I might as well do something. And if you're going to do something, you might as well do the thing you were going to do. And it's a mind game, but just bring it back to something that you can do. I'm not going to go to the gym, but I can put my shoes on. I can't put my gym shoes on. All right. Well, I'll put my gym shoes on. I might as well jump in the car. Play that game with yourself and see where it gets you.
I think the people are curious, Gary, what's going to be your next thing that you don't want to do, that you're going to make yourself do? Because that brain center is going to shrink if you don't do. You like cold showers and climbing mountains now. Oh, you've already got it right there. I love it.
Yeah, no, I've already started. Look, and these are things, I suppose the definition for me is these are things that I want to do. These are things that I find very challenging to make myself do. So I actually have
Yep.
to go to work, put in work to do these. And it seems strange because, some of this stuff is in my wheelhouse. So my list, so part of what I've added into my morning routine. So I do 15 minutes in the morning connection with my wife. I've got a baby too, who's with us. So, but 15 minutes connection first thing in the morning. I drink 500 mils of water. Probably it's usually about 800 or 1,000 mils, but at the minimum of 500 mils. And then these are the two things that I have always struggled with maintaining a practice for. A gratitude practice, which I love, and I do probably in my head quite a bit, but not as much as a structured process. So building that structured process and breath work. I like how I feel after breath work, but for some reason, there is a block for me to actually sit down and give it the 5 minutes. I don't know why, but I've always found it difficult to maintain. So those are the two things that I'm building this year. The one after that will be reading. I like reading research papers. I don't mind reading articles, but reading books, I find challenging. And I like it. I like what I get from it, but the actual act of it, I find challenging. So I've shifted a little bit. Again, I'm outside of my zone of comfort. Some of these, I could do another physical challenge that I do every week for a year, but these are probably a little more cerebral or internal. And that's probably the area that I really do struggle with. It's the sitting part that I struggle with. And it's about time that I looked into that as well. And truth be told, I've missed a day already this year, but my pre-planned process for if I missed is that I don't miss twice. And if you miss day 2, then now it's your fault. The first day might be a mistake. The second day, that's when you're letting yourself down. And so my resolution is to at least not miss 2 days in a row. So worst case scenario, I'll do it 180 times this year. But as that part of your brain grows, those missed days become fewer and further between. And so hopefully by the end of the year, and history suggests that this will be the case, that I'll have a very well-worn gratitude and breathwork practice that I'll be able to talk about this time next year.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I do all my planning. All that was done in December. That list was done in December. There's no way I'm getting to the 1st of January and not knowing how I'm starting the year.
Awesome.
It's been great to catch up again, Jade. It's been a little while.
Always is. Always is. Yeah.
And hopefully we'll do it again next month. It's nice to see you outdoors, considering it's winter there, but it's never winter in Florida, is it?
Exactly. Our winter is, I guess the Fahrenheit Celsius isn't going to translate, but for us, anything under 60 degrees, I'm wearing a coat. And that
60?
is
All right.
60. That is well above freezing. Well above.
Yeah.
It's a joke. I used to live. Sorry.
Oh no, I was going to say, I think for us that's about 16 degrees Celsius. So it's cool. It's chilly, but it's not terrible.
I used to live up north, and I'd say I dress when it's 60 here now. I dress like I used to dress when it was 20 up north, and that is significantly below freezing. So your blood acclimates, but I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. But it's fun when there's a little chill in the air here, which again, if it was 60 degrees in Wisconsin where I used to live, the guys would all be wearing shorts and t-shirts and playing football in the yard and being really happy about how warm it was. And here I usually have a hat on and 2 layers and boots and everything. So just stay warm.
Fantastic. It's been great catching up. We'll do it again next month, and hopefully by next month we're 30 or 40 days into keeping our processes up.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Gary, I'll talk to you soon.
Great to see you.